listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast, a Texas Tech athletics podcast where food and sports clash at the goal line. Here are your hosts, Spencer and Michael.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 23 Personnel Podcast. I am your host, Spencer, joined by Michael. Michael, what's up, man?
Man, I am ready to go. I'm a little miffed that my computer does not qualify for Windows 11, despite having a processor 3 times faster than the minimum requirement and twice as many cores as the minimum requirement, but it's not on the sacred list. So therefore, I am a little peeved. How are you?
I'm irritated, technology-wise, that nothing changed in the setup. Last week, nothing worked. This week, it's working. So I guess I shouldn't be irritated. I'm like retroactively even more irritated that last week it didn't work out. Whatever.
It's working so far.
Yeah, I'm sure in about 5 minutes, we'll hear a click, or I will hear a click. I'll be talking. I'll ask you a question, and you're like, what? I can't hear you. Or vice versa. You'll be talking, click, and then you'll just be gone. So anyways.
But we'll power through like we always do.
Power through as we always do. Well, Michael, how did you fare for the bye week? Did you survive?
I did. Made it. Had some exciting soccer to watch. We'll get to that later. The Texas Tech soccer. Also the Queen Bees played a couple of games over the bye week. Had a makeup game.
My first thought was you were talking about our Queen Bees. So
I know. I felt like I should clarify that because I knew that the 23 Personnel Nation was thinking the same thing you were.
On bated breath to hear how they are doing.
Oh, I'll be happy to share later on.
Oh, see, look, there it was. 2 minutes, 40 seconds into the episode, and we're having this issue. I guess if you're early on, it's fantastic. So you probably can't hear this on the stream. You can hear it on the recording just fine. I'm going to drop out and come right back. We'll see how it works. Stay tuned, everybody. All right, I'm back. Is Michael back? Michael never left.
Never left.
There he is. Let's go. Only took me 2.5 minutes. New record. Those listening to the recording will never just seamless. One step to the next. Like, man, that was, I don't know what they're talking about. Those on the YouTube stream, thanks for hanging with us. All 2 of you. I did lose somebody, but hopefully they come back. This time it gave me a very clear warning that, like, oh, hey, the USB device that you were using is no longer recognized. Like, why does that change? It has to be like running through the dock or something. I have no idea. But this particular device in front of me, this laptop, has 2 USB ports. And if I was to plug every USB device into it, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. I need like 3 or 4 more than this thing actually has. Did it do it again, Michael?
Okay.
No, you're there. Okay.
No, I'm here.
Sorry, there was a delay there, and then like you weren't responding. I was like, oh no, here we go again. All right. So back to the technology issues I was talking about earlier. We've made it through the bye week, Michael, and I don't fear. I think it came at a good time, health wise, and to kind of reset. We now have 7 straight games before we hit another break. And if we needed a bye week after 4 games, I'm concerned slightly about what this next stretch may look like. So,
yeah, it's not the best having a bye week. This was a good time for a bye week. Honestly, I felt really good about this, but not having another one until you're about to play your last regular season game, like you said, that's a long way to go.
yeah. So we will not recap the bye week because there's no game to recap. We'll look around the Big 12, any big games. I want to look at the net success rate for week 5, Michael. I don't know if you saw this. 2 Big 12 games or games involving Big 12 teams were at the very bottom of this list. And on the bad side of it, they very underperformed their net success rates. And yet still won. So, square that round peg. We'll give a little bit, I guess, of a injury report availability update. Look ahead around the Big 12. And of course, we have to preview the Houston Cougars. So, oh, wait, Michael, there's something else we should talk about. Coaching carousel season is upon us. Now, Big 12 coaches, these weren't the first coaches fired this season, but got another wave of them this past week. We knew Oklahoma State moved on from Mike Gundy. Did you see further staff changes following their loss to Baylor?
I did. I saw that they let go Grantham, right?
Yeah, they cut ties with their defensive coordinator. So their head coach and defensive coordinator gone. Doug Meacham is in control now. Interim head coach Clint Bowen. That name should sound familiar because he took over, I believe, at Kansas before Leipold. Is their interim DC. All kinds of fun things happening. More of a shakeup, though, in the state of Arkansas. I'm sure everybody saw this. Sam Pittman was fired after their embarrassing loss to Notre Dame. Former head coach, offensive coordinator, and now interim head coach Bobby Petrino said, hey, now that I'm in charge, I'm firing everybody, which is a bold move. It's not like you can go and backfill these positions on the fly. So cutting other coaches midway is like, what? I don't understand the logic here. So again, same with Oklahoma State. Doug Meacham cutting the defensive coordinators. Like, what are you doing? But Bobby Petrino, interim head coach, fired the defensive coordinator Travis Williams, the defensive line coach Deke Adams, and kind of like what feels like a self-preservation move, fired the co-offensive coordinator Marcus Woodson.
I mean, I think Petrino's looking at this as an obvious. Well, if I turn this ship around, then I will become the head coach again.
And we'd heard that, like,
yet another redemption story of college football with UCF, and I already forgot the other one, West Virginia. So yeah, I mean, let's go ahead. Sure. This one's on a different level though, with how he exited and why and where he has been since. So I that's got to be it, right? He's just got to, okay, well, there's still 8 games left. I'm going to shoot my shot, and if we go 6-2 in these last 8 games, I might as well have my guys that I want to try to make this happen the way I want it to happen, and then they'll have, quote unquote, no choice but to, let me just take over and make the head coach money next year.
Yeah. So, all right. The net success rate chart came out, as it always does. Parker Fleming does a great job. Stats of War. I wanted to draw your attention to the 2 matchups on the far left side of this graphic, Michael. One being Houston versus Oregon State had the largest disparity between Houston being negative in the net success rate while still winning, right next to BYU. But Houston needing every second of regulation and overtime to take down Oregon State to win this past weekend. So their 4-0 looks a lot different than your 4-0. If you want transitive property this, it is not a pretty matchup for the old Cougars down there of Houston, which we'll get into when we do our preview a little bit later. But I don't want to like immediately just say like, well, they needed overtime and then you blew Oregon State out. So like you're going to beat them by whatever you beat Oregon State by. But also like give them benefit of the doubt, I guess, and say like that may have been their worst performance so far this season, and that's not who they are. But that is also something they're capable of doing. We've seen they are supremely inefficient offense. They are really good defense, but their defense isn't that good to keep them into every game, right?
Whose defense? Oregon State's or Houston's?
Houston. Sorry, that probably wasn't clear. The Houston defense is good. And yes. Again, we'll deep dive this in a few minutes when we can do our preview. It's pretty dang good. Probably it's as good as Utah's. The difference though is Utah paired that with a pretty dang good offense, and Houston's offense is bad, like worst in the country.
Is it?
Efficiency wise, yeah.
Oh, efficiency wise, maybe. Okay, but scoring wise, it's not. They're doing pretty good scoring wise, like 38 points a game or something, whatever it is.
31.
Yeah. I know I'm surprised at, and we'll get into it. Maybe we should just. No,
I'm not ready for it yet.
More about.
No.
Okay, we're not ready yet. Okay,
I'm gonna drag it out.
I don't know how to talk more about this without getting into that game. So we can touch on BYU and Colorado because it was kind of a similar deal, but half as much of a disparity. So U of H, what is that? They had negative 0.125 on their efficiency rate. And Oregon State, of course, had, I guess, they were hovering above the .025 or something. So somehow Houston still won that game, and then BYU ended up in a similar shootout, but not quite as bad. So where Houston was negative .125, BYU's was more like .06. A little bit better, but still won. So yeah, just kind of interesting that both of those games were on the opposite end of the spectrum. And even looking a little bit closer, it wasn't quite a disparity, but Cincy and Kansas were flipped. Cincy was less efficient than Kansas, but they won. So there's a few Big 12 versions of that on this graph. Interesting.
Yeah. Let's recap quickly the week that was in the Big 12. Friday night, Texas Christian TCU took on Arizona State in the desert. Arizona State was a 2.5 point favorite. Arizona State ended up winning by 3 points. So nailed that. 27-24. Any thoughts on that one, Michael?
I thought that
I didn't watch this one, so
yeah, I thought that TCU would be able to move the ball more than they were, and I was surprised at how much Arizona State was able to slow them down. So I was a little surprised by that, and I think it was 17-0 to start out. Maybe I think Arizona State scored 17 unanswered. It was something like that. So yeah, I was just impressed all around that TCU was unable to hang on to that lead, even though I felt like they were the better team coming into it, not by a whole lot. I've been pretty high on Arizona State this year. They still only have one loss, and Mississippi State may turn out to be pretty decent. We'll find out a little bit more this week when they go to. I think they go to College Station. I know they play the Aggies, but I'm not positive where. So we may learn a little bit more about that. But yeah, I do not know how TCU lost that game.
yeah, very special for them. Hate to see it.
Yeah,
I mean, I would have liked to see TCU win that one because they are not in your way to Arlington as much as Arizona State is.
Sure, but then the other argument is beating Arizona State in their house would be a resume builder if they're 6-1 or whatever by the time we play them.
Sure.
Which I don't know when that is. I mean, I think it's pretty quick. I don't know if the math's right. Maybe 7-1, whatever.
4, 5, 6. It would be 6-0. Well, I sorry, Texas Tech would be 6-0, assuming that they are victorious this week and next. The game at Arizona State is on the 18th. I don't know about the Arizona State schedule. I'm not clicking through enough links to find it. So, Houston at Oregon State. We talked about this one. They needed, again, it's another 27-24 outcome, but this one went to overtime. Houston was a 12.5 point favorite. Surprised that their defense was allowing Oregon State to do what they did, but also they looked very evenly matched. And maybe there was something to do with Oregon State being back on campus and having, a home crowd and all this kind of stuff. I was just not impressed with Houston. I don't want to take too much stock in that, but
speaking of the home crowd, and yeah, we'll talk more about this game later. Speaking of the home crowd, I was shout out to the folks of Corvallis for showing up and showing out for an 0-4 team on a Friday. They killed it. The attendance looked great. The environment looked great, and they got to watch a great game. Unfortunately, they had to go 0-5 by the end of the evening, but I was really impressed with that. I don't want to wish this scenario upon Texas Tech or anything, but knowing our fans, I do think if the roles were reversed and Texas Tech was coming home after an 0-4 start, the Jones would be crickets.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I agree.
I'm afraid that's would be the case. And, people can argue with me and say that that's not true, but I remember when just a few years ago, leaving at halftime was like the cool thing to do, whether we were up by 20 or down by 20. So it wasn't that long ago, people. So I think that everyone would be so jaded, especially after hype and whatnot. If an 0-4 team rolls around, that you're going to be able to find a seat for $350.
As I remember, like you just weren't talking about it, I was just reminded, like there were actual messaging campaigns from the athletic department about staying in your seat or coming back after halftime.
Yes.
That's how bad it was. Like,
Well,
we
and
need you. Come back.
That's how bad it was. And now they've countered that with a couple of ways. They've started selling beer in the stadium, and 2, you can't come back. If you leave, that's it. So
I don't know how much that stopped anybody.
They've had to. Well, I mean, it may now, because I can't remember when they actually started that. But yeah, you're right. Because there for a long time, you could come back until the end of the third quarter, maybe. But now it's no. If you leave, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, Saturday, Cincinnati at Kansas. Kansas was a touchdown favorite. Cincinnati pulls this one off. So it's a 10-point swing if you look at the line, 37-34. It's a big-time win for Cincinnati. I think maybe we're seeing that Cincinnati put it together. Good for them.
Yeah, they were really close in a lot of games last year.
Yeah, they were pretty close in Lubbock. UCF at Kansas State. Kansas State was a 5.5-point favorite. They won by 2 touchdowns. I think more or less like that was more of the UCF we were kind of expecting. Maybe they're coming back down to earth a little bit. I think they've been overperforming, but that's just me. Utah at West Virginia, going all the way from the mountains to the mountains. The Utes were 9.5-point favorites, and they took it to West Virginia by 34. A lot of that, I think, well, again, I don't want to downplay or take anything away from Utah. West Virginia is absolutely one-dimensional, and they have to run the ball. And the Utah front seven, the defense, but the front seven specifically is very strong. So, also looked like Dampier and his ankle were doing just fine. Baylor, 19.5 points at Oklahoma State. They ended up winning 45-27. Arizona at Iowa State. Iowa State was a 6.5-point favorite at home, ended up winning by 25. Again, maybe this is a lot like UCF. They're coming back down a little bit. Iowa State's good, but I think Arizona was also overperforming. And then BYU was a touchdown favorite on the road, ended up winning by 3 at Colorado.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to point out through that stretch was Oklahoma State covered.
Good teams win, great teams cover. Is that what you're saying? They're a great team?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. That was a 19.5-point spread, and they lost by 18.
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
It's close.
Good gravy. Oh, Oklahoma State's going to be a mess. Speaking of tough cover, I'm sure you've seen the quotes coming out from Fernando Mendoza after he had a safety in the final play of the game that took their 7-point victory to a 5-point victory, and it was a 6.5-point line. It's interesting.
Oh, well, he said he apologized, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was weird.
Big nooner, USC at Illinois. Illinois ends up winning this one by 2. USC, like they look like they had the game and then just kind of let it slip away, man. Game day was in Pennsylvania for Oregon at Penn State. Although it was broadcast on NBC, I've seen several places, and I went back and I've watched it. The broadcast very severely downplayed the actual sound of the stadium. Like, I don't know if they just mic'd it up differently or if the production staff, whatever, would just like they mixed it differently or just NBC, whatever. Like I've seen people saying like I was there and then I went back and watched it. And I was like, that is nowhere near what the stadium was like. The broadcast made it seem way more tame. So when you see, Dante Moore, the Oregon quarterback, just sitting there and just picking apart the defense, like on the broadcast, you kind of get it. But like, I think even more so goes to his poise and what he was able to handle, because apparently in person, that stadium, as you would expect, 111,000 people, was just otherworldly. But Oregon ends up winning that one in double overtime, game sealing interception there, 30-24. Alabama at Georgia. Alabama wins this one 24-21. Notre Dame, we mentioned the deep pantsing of Arkansas that led to the Sam Pittman firing, 56-13. And then our Fighting Sunny Cumbies, La Tech, 4.5-point favorites at UTEP, ends up winning this one 30-11, and now 4-1 in 2025.
Yeah, they are whatever conference they're in. They're sole first place. They're up there at the top. What conference is that?
Is it USA?
It might be USA. I'll do a quick AP top 25 update. Not a lot of movement with the Big 12, but all the movement in the right directions, let's say. So Texas Tech, the highest ranked Big 12 team as of this poll, and I believe the last poll, has moved from 12 to 11. Iowa State was 14, and they remained 14. BYU was 25 last week, moved up to 23. Arizona State is back, baby. They were not ranked there for a couple of weeks. They are back in at 25. TCU, who was 24, losing at Arizona State. Basically, they just kind of shuffled or switched places. So TCU is now out. Notre Dame, because I'm a hater and I want to see how they're doing. As I was very shocked by this, Spencer, they only moved one spot from 22 to 21, despite just absolutely demolishing an SEC team on the road. I really figured that this would vault them to the top 10, especially with Georgia losing and, some other big losses. I think Florida State lost, so there were some other top 10s that lost. I thought, okay, well, that's just going to be a straight swap. But no, voters were not fazed by this win. And, although they did only move up one spot to 21, they are still the only ranked 2-loss team in the country.
Wow.
So still getting the golden domer treatment there. Receiving votes, Utah's receiving votes, and TCU, which would make sense since TCU was 25th or 24th and just got knocked out this week. Coaches poll, very similar, except Iowa State and Texas Tech are in opposite places, basically. Iowa State was 13 last week. They are now 12. Texas Tech stayed at 14. BYU, previously 24, moved up to 23. Arizona State, similar to AP poll, they were unranked last week, are now at 24. Utah, though, is in this poll. They are 25th and were not ranked the week before. And TCU, of course, was 25th on this one, and they are out. So a lot of outside looking in, control your own destiny type thing. But yeah, it's still a very SEC Big Ten heavy top 25, especially once you get into the top 10.
Well, you get the circle jerk. Well, like, oh, they beat a quality opponent and an SEC opponent, and then like, well, you look at that opponent, like they've played nobody, so and they have a terrible record, but sure, they're quality opponent because they're in a conference. Cool. All right. I don't have any qualms or issues with
This is 3-1. They're not.
What?
Hello?
Hey, there you are.
I can hear you.
I can hear you. It was like we're super delayed.
We're just delayed. I'm not sure what's. Yeah, we've been very delayed this whole time, so I'm sure it sounds like I'm talking over you, but I promise I'm not.
It doesn't like,
and I can hear like an echo of myself to Mississippi after I talk, so I don't know what the fuck's going
on. Hold on.
Yeah, I heard that. Like, anyway. There you go.
Probably just in time to catch it too. All right.
The beep's on a delay too. Makes sense.
It's like the reverse beep, like the broadcast delay of 8 seconds. Yeah, that's what we're working with. All right. I don't know if that's you or me too. I mean, it could be both of us. We could just be compounding issues because I don't think my internet's been super fantastic tonight. Let's jump in the preview, and we'll work through this. Texas Tech traveling to Houston to take on the Cougars. The Houston Cougars. If you follow S&P Plus, which I do, and I've been a big fan because Bill Connolly has really liked Texas Tech this season. So of course I'm gonna use their numbers almost exclusively here. Houston is the number 51 team. Texas Tech is the number 5 team, up from 8 last week, which is impressive jump. That much movement in the top 10 without playing a game. 6 p.m. kick on ESPN. It's going to be steamy. I mean, this is not out of the ordinary for me down here because this is my neck of the woods now. Led by Willie Fritz. They are 4-0 this season. They were 4-8 last season. They've already matched their win total from a year ago, and they're not stopping here. Penalty-wise, they are much better than Texas Tech. Texas Tech has got to figure out a way to clean up these penalties, especially the pre-snap procedural stuff. 37 total penalties for the Red Raiders, which is tied for 117th after week 5. Houston has 22 penalties, so 15 fewer over that same stretch, 33rd in the country. Offensively, S&P numbers here have Houston as the number 76 offense. The Texas Tech defense checking in at number 20. They are led coordinator-wise by Slade Nagel. On the field, Connor Wegman, 6'3", 210 junior, transfer from Texas A&M, completing just over 61% of his passes for 840 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions to date, just under 8 yards per attempt. Can move a little bit with his legs, not a true dual threat, but a guy that can move to make things happen. 40 carries, 141 net yards, good for 3.5 yards per carry, and has added 4 touchdowns. So he is responsible for 10 on his own. When the Cougars run the ball, they are looking at Dean Connors, 6'2", 205 senior transfer from crosstown rival in Rice. 67 carries so far on the season, 325 yards, just under 5 yards a carry, and 3 touchdowns. Wegman is second in carries and yards. And then their second leading running back is Stacy Sneed, 5'11", 185 senior. Looking around the skill position guys and the leaders on this team, they are very old. You're going to hear a lot of seniors and juniors But Snead has 27 carries, so 40 fewer than Connors, 113 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, and has not crossed the goal line as of yet. When the ball goes in the air, they're looking at, well, their leader in receptions is their tight end, Tanner Koziel, 6'7", 240 senior, 23 catches, 234 yards, 10.2 yards per catch, and 2 touchdowns. But their leading receiver in yards by one is Stephon Johnson, 6'2", 190 senior. He has 8 catches, 235 yards. Michael, that quick math says 29.5 yards per catch for Johnson and 2 touchdowns. Finally, Amari Thomas, 14 receptions on the year, 214 yards, 15.3 yards per catch, and a touchdown. So the three of them, all very similar in yardage, 235, 234, and 214, but very different in how they do it. Johnson's much more of a big play guy, 8 receptions. Koziel is the security blanket tight end at 23 catches. And then your more standard outside receiver, Amari Thomas, 15.5 yards per catch on 14 receptions. Michael, we were talking about not wanting to do the transitive property here of Texas Tech versus Houston versus Oregon State, but I do think it is worth pointing out just how differently these two teams lined up and performed against the Beavers. Do you want to take this one?
Yes, I've got yes. I know I'm trying not to overstep with the delay, so you may have to be really obvious when you throw to me. So yes, I've done some noticing here, #noticing about Texas Tech offense versus Oregon State defense and Houston's offense versus Oregon State's defense. So yeah, a lot of differences. Houston was on the road, Tech was at home. Different weeks, different whatevers. So just grain of salt, but I was kind of amazed at how I came into this game when they were in Corvallis thinking that Houston would be able to score fairly easily and not have that big of an issue. I'm a little surprised by their offensive stats. I thought they would pop a little more than they do. And they did until they went through the buzzsaw that is the Oregon State Beaver defense, as we all know. So just a couple of things I was wanting to point out as we know that the transitive property is not necessarily going to apply. It's still interesting to me. So Texas Tech offense, when they played Oregon State, had 30 first downs. Houston, when they played Oregon State, only had 17. So points for our Red Raiders. Texas Tech also threw 27 or had 27 catches out of 41 passing attempts for 478 yards. That's 17.7 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, whereas Houston, almost the same number of completions, less attempts. They were 26-36, had 270 yards, only 13.5 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So points to the Red Raiders there. Third down, Texas Tech didn't do as well as I thought they did, but I think a lot of it's because they didn't see third down as much. They were 9 of 15 against the Beavs, so that's a 60% rate. Houston was 6 of 15 against the Beavs, so that's 40%. Check to Texas Tech there. Red zone. Texas Tech had 6 attempts in the red zone. They scored on 5 of them. Houston only got to the red zone 3 times, but they scored all 3. Check to the Red Raiders. But there was one area that I was kind of surprised that it was really very similar. Texas Tech did not rush the ball well versus Oregon State. And I kind of don't remember this, but I think it's because we had some passes out of the backfield, and Jacoby Williams may have had some long plays as a receiver, and I just kind of think those in my head as a that he got it as a handoff, or or something like that. But I think that's where I'm kind of mixed up on it. So yeah, Texas Tech only had 121 yards on 40 rushes. That's 3 yards per carry. Whereas Houston, because I saw Houston's first, and it's like, oh, that's terrible. But they had 30 rushes for 82 yards, which, yeah, that's low. But that's 2.7 yards per carry. It's really similar to Texas Tech's 3 yards per carry. So neither team was really very successful running the ball versus Oregon State, for whatever reason. But obviously Texas Tech was much more successful in throwing, to being throwers of the football. And now I'll turn it back over to you, Spencer.
Comment came up over on YouTube. I'm going to share it real quickly on the stream so everybody can see it. But Aaron says, I will never forget the transitive round robin of Kansas State, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech in 2009. While you were going through that, I wanted to pull that up really quickly and remind everybody what that looked like. So October 10th, 2009, on a very dreary, drizzly night in Lubbock, Texas, Stephen Sheffield led the Texas Tech Red Raiders to a 66-14 victory over Purple Kansas, the Wildcats of Kansas State. Kansas State came back home to host Texas A&M and whipped them 62-14. So like, man, transitive property here. Texas Tech is going to beat Texas A&M by 100. Well, 2 weeks later, Texas A&M travels up to Lubbock, and we get the fat little girlfriends game where Texas Tech loses 52-30. I believe that is the day that Eric Stevens had his knee exploded, Tyreek Hill style, by Von Miller. I was at this game. I think my brother and I hit the road shortly after this one to go to my grandfather's funeral, of all places. I think he had ended up passing away Saturday morning, Friday night. And there wasn't much we could have done to get there any earlier. So we stayed for the game and then left. Not that our presence at the stadium did much because it was horrendous, if I'm remembering correctly. But you had a horrendous second quarter. You were up 14-7 after the end of one. And then Texas A&M scored 21 unanswered in the second to take a 28-14 halftime lead. They added 10 more in the third, 14 more in the fourth. It was not good. There was a long run, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was the Kristen Michael run for 44 yards. I feel like it was longer than that. Where like the defense just parted and he could have run from 199. All right. Let's look at stats. Houston offense this season versus the Texas Tech defense. Houston offensively is throwing the ball 208 yards per game, 7.6 yards per attempt. It's not great. 172 yards on the ground for 4.1 yards per carry. Again, it's okay. Both are average numbers. They're converting 44% of their third and fourth downs and scoring 31 points per game. Defensively, Texas Tech is allowing teams to throw for 183 yards per game at only 5 yards per attempt, giving up 56 yards on the ground at 2.0 yards per carry. Teams are converting 29% of their third and fourth downs against the Red Raiders and scoring only 11 points. Last week when I said Texas Tech scoring defense of 11 points was good for 5th in the Big 12, that has changed. And I want to update that, but I was not ready for this. Should have had this pulled up. That's basketball. Here we go. Defense. Oh man, so fast. Okay, well, this is maddeningly slow. I can't deal with this. This is so bad. All right, forget that. Offensively, when Texas Tech has the ball going up against this Houston defense, the Cougar defense rated by S&P Plus is the 25th best defense, going up against the number 3 offense. Texas Tech moved from, or stayed at 3. They are led coordinator wise by Austin Armstrong. This is obviously his first season with Houston, as they are replacing Sheil Wood. Previously, Armstrong was the defensive coordinator at Florida the past 2 seasons. As a unit, they have tallied 9 team sacks, led by linebacker Corey Platt Jr., who has 2.5. They have 22 total tackles for loss, 5.5 per game, 5 interceptions, 15 passes batted down, 11 quarterback hurries, 7 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. So they are disruptive defensively, Michael. Led in tackles by a defensive lineman and then 2 linebackers. They are, you have to get to their 4th leading tackler to get to a defensive back, which tells you that their front is doing its job and keeping guys in front of them. They are allowing teams to convert only 27% of their 3rd and 4th down conversion attempts, which is just insane. Michael, you found another transitive property here versus Oregon State. Tell us about it.
Yes, thank you. I did. So Texas Tech's defense versus Oregon State's offense. And then, of course, Houston's defense versus Oregon State in those games. Tech's defense allowed 17 first downs. Houston's allowed 22. I'm saving the rushing numbers for the last again on this one because that's the most interesting to me. Tech allowed 25 of 46 passing, so just a really terrible percentage on passing. 281 yards, 11.2 yards per catch, though, for 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, whereas Houston allowed 20 of 33 passing, 201 yards, 10.1 yards per catch, 1 touchdown, but 0 interceptions. 3rd down was identical, which surprised me. Both Tech and Houston allowed 41% on 3rd down, 7 of 17 attempts. Red zone scoring is a big feather in Texas Tech's cap. Oregon State only made it to the red zone 3 times and only scored once, whereas Houston allowed Oregon State to the red zone 5 times and they scored 4 of those times. Now, the big catch to me is how much more effective Oregon State was running the ball versus this Houston defense, which is, top 25 ranked defense. They don't seem to allow that many rushing yards per game. I mean, I'm not to jump ahead, but they're only allowing 125 per game on average. But they allowed 189 rushing yards versus Oregon State on 49 rushes. So that's right at 4 yards per carry. Whereas Texas Tech, this is a wonderful stat. Oregon State had 22 rushes for 8 EIGHT 8 yards. That's 0.4 yards per carry. So I'm surprised at how well this defense grades and how disruptive they can be and how they can get to the quarterback and they can get pressure, but apparently they can allow an Oregon State offense to run almost 200 yards on them at 4 yards per carry.
It's not good. As a unit, Texas Tech offense is putting up 369 yards through the air at 10.1 yards per attempt. 205 on the ground, 5.5 yards per carry, and converting almost 55% of third and fourth down attempts, scoring 52 points per game in the process. Defensively, Houston is giving up 140 yards through the air at 4.9 yards per attempt. Their pass defense is ridiculous. Rush yards per game, 125 at 3.3 yards per carry. We said their third and fourth down conversion percentage, 29%. And then they are allowing teams to score 13 points. This is this time of recording, a 12.5 point line for Texas Tech on the road. Do you have keys to the game, Michael, for your preview?
I kind of do. I have keys and sort of predictions. So I think based off what we just kind of went through, I'm not going to hold, no offense to Colorado or Rice or who was the other team Houston played. I'm going back up. Oh, Stephen F. Austin. I'm not going to hold them to a big standard for helping Houston's defensive average of rushing yards at 125 yards per game when Oregon State almost rushed 200 on them. So I think the key in my pea brain of a mind is to run the dang ball. So RTDB, that's what I put down for my key to the game. The other thing I wrote down is more of a prediction. And I think Weigman, you mentioned it when you were running through his stat line. I did not realize this, but he has yet to throw an interception. Well, brother, I think that's going to end on Saturday. And I think we're probably going to see multiple. I'm going to guess we're going to see 2. He's going to see a pressure. He's going to see a front 7 that he's yet to encounter and may not encounter for the rest of the year, that I think is fired up and ready to play after a week off. So I'm looking for him to turn the ball over at least once or twice through the air. There could be a quarterback fumble involved. I think it's going to be a rough day for Weigman. So that's kind of my keys to the game. I don't have a score yet, so I'd like for you to go through your score first, Spencer, and I'll kind of come up with one.
I don't have like a key to the game here. I think what I would point to is that like Weigman can't beat you through the air, and your run defense is too good to let a Rice transfer carve you up. And maybe that's just me being a little too prideful, but I think this is a game you don't allow an offensive touchdown. I just don't see Houston being able to drive the ball on you consistently enough to score a touchdown, unless it was a short field or you had poor tackling or something and you allowed them to have a big chunk play. They're not explosive outside of their one receiver. I'm not like overly concerned about that one. If you look at their advanced stats, offensive success rate, it's 116th in the country. They're 106th drop back plays, 110th when they run the ball. It's just offensively, it's just not there. I think the things that you had issues with last week, when I say last week, I mean your last game against against Utah, will be much more mitigated this week. You're not playing in the same environment. You're not facing the same front. You've had time to adjust and to implement factors to snap the ball that doesn't require hearing the snap, hearing the clap of the quarterback. although I don't think that would be that much of an issue this week. And I have supreme confidence in this defense versus basically anybody. And the Houston offense does not scare me. So I think regardless of who the starting quarterback is for Texas Tech, I fully believe it to be Baron Morton, and for him to be healthy. But I think Texas Tech puts up very similar results points wise. Maybe it's a little more spread out than they were against Utah. That's not all 21 of the 34 there in the fourth quarter. But I think Texas Tech wins something like 37-9. Something weird where they just Utah. Oh my gosh, Utah. Houston doesn't get in the end zone. And 3 times it felt right. So
In your defense, Houston's and Utah's logos and colors are very similar, just slightly different letters. But I changed the score probably 5 times while you were talking. I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to achieve in my head. I think Houston's going to be able to, get one of those long passes, maybe 2 of them. I'm not really sure. And that might get them in range to have a nice first and goal on the 7, that type of thing. So I see some scoring involved by Houston. I started out with like a 35-17 score. And then I just feel like, man, I need to just push the chips in on the table. So I'm going 41-17 Texas Tech. This will be a Houston team that fared well on the road. They faced a semi-tough environment, probably the toughest 0-4 environment you'll ever face, and went in and kept their composure, won a game in overtime. I don't want to discount that. I don't want to act like that's not a mental exercise that's cost Tech some games, in the past. So we've seen that on our end. This is a game that Texas Tech, in the same position, maybe even as soon as a year or 2 ago, would have come out with a loss. So I think that I'm just still bullish on this offense. I still don't know if we've seen it fire on all cylinders yet. I think the closest we've seen was against Oregon State, and that was a team that Houston struggled against. So that's kind of just all I can come back to is the good old reliable transitive property, and just feel that what I saw this weekend was not something that concerned me as much as I had anticipated. So 41-17, that's where I'm landing. Go Red Raiders.
yeah, we'll be back to recap all that Saturday night, tell you how they did and how they did it. But we'll look around the rest of the Big 12 schedule and get you our thoughts there, and then any other meaningful or noteworthy games, get you a soccer update, answer some of your questions, and talk about what do we learn. So let's look at the Big 12. Friday night, West Virginia at BYU. BYU is a 19.5-point favorite at home, 9:30 p.m. on ESPN. That's going to be a bloodbath in Provo.
Yeah, I think I would take the Cougs with the 19.5.
Same. Saturday morning, Iowa State at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a favorite here. Color me intrigued. I would love to see nothing more than Cincinnati win this game. I don't know if I believe it yet, though. So, in the sake of me wanting to be right, give me Iowa State.
Yeah, I would take Iowa State on that too. I'm rechecking that line right now because I remember seeing that the other day, and I felt the same way then. That, well, that's just kind of interesting. So let's see. Right now, it's still that. It's still Cincinnati favored at 1.5. So they're expecting a very Very close game in Ohio. And you know what? Give me the Bearcats.
Nice. What was I looking for? Kansas State at Baylor. Baylor's a touchdown favorite here at home. This one, I believe Baylor's a better team than Kansas State. I've seen the regression there with Kansas State. This one feels kind of trappy to me. And I can't put my finger on it. I don't have any faith in Kansas State, but I'm going to take them plus 6.5.
I'm in the same boat. I think Baylor could very well win this game by 3 or 4 or 5, but I think it's going to be pretty close. Kansas State's going to be coming in after their, pretty quote unquote easy win against a UCF squad that was getting votes in the AP poll and kind of making some waves here and there. But I'm with you. I'm still think that Baylor's better than they have been, better than what we've seen. And I think they'll squeak out a win, but I don't know if they would do it by 7.
Oklahoma State at Arizona. Arizona State getting the same treatment there as BYU. 19.5 points. I know Oklahoma State is bad. That feels like a lot of points. I don't like it, but I'm going to take Arizona there. It's because Oklahoma State is a shell of itself and going to continue to unravel. That's all there is. Arizona is doing better, and they're facing a very broken Oklahoma State team. So give me Arizona there, even though it's a 3 touchdown line. Ugh, I don't love it. Arizona.
Yeah, I don't like picking this one either. I'm still gonna. I did this last week too. I think I did pick Oklahoma State to cover there because I believe it was 19.5 versus Baylor, and so I'm just gonna stick with that. That's a lot of points. I know that we both kind of did it without even thinking about it with West Virginia at BYU, but I'm not feeling the same way here, and to be different. So I'm going to pick Oklahoma State plus 19.5.
Kansas 3.5 point favorites in Orlando at UCF. Yeah, it's gonna be a close game, and not just because of the line. I just think they're very. Give me Kansas to cover this one, but not by much more.
I'm with you. I picked Kansas because I'm just looking at this, and I don't think we should change our lines or anything. But that line has since moved to minus 5.5.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, we should have locked in Kansas minus 3.5 earlier this week. Oh well.
And then finally, Colorado at TCU, 14.5 points for the Frogs. Colorado's been weird. Give me Colorado to cover this one, not to win, but to cover this one. 10, 11, 9 points, but I like TCU to win this one. I think Colorado covers.
I'm picking TCU to cover because I think they are mad. I think they feel like they let one go in Tempe, and they absolutely did. And this will be at home. There'll be at least 10 or 12,000 people there. It'll be just packed to the brim.
Well, I don't know.
Lots of white button-up shirts and sunglasses still on past 6:30. So it's going to be a great scene. I think TCU will win and cover the 14.5.
I don't know. It's going to be hot. The fair's in town. It's an unranked matchup. There's going to be 18 different excuses why this one's not going to be full. Arizona State and Utah are both
just so much more to do
week.
in Fort Worth.
Yeah, go to the livestock show, I guess. Other Big 12, not Big 12, other big games around the country. Big noon, Wisconsin at Michigan. Game day is headed to Tuscaloosa, Vanderbilt at Alabama. And while this is between 2 ranked teams, I have a very hard time believing Vanderbilt is this good. I know they've 5-6 games, 6 weeks in, at this point. I have a hard time believing a ranking 16 next to Vanderbilt, but my goodness, it's the world we live in, I guess. Clemson at North Carolina. Can Clemson, can they continue to free fall here? Can it happen, Michael? I'd love to see it.
I liked this matchup just because it just seems so disgusting. Like it's a 1-3 team versus a 2-2 team. Both coaches are, super well known, and everybody's kind of keeping an eye on both of them and what they're doing. I just thought, and it's an ACC game. I really don't care much about ACC games, so this is one that was intriguing because of all those reasons, and I think I'll be checking in on that one.
And then look who the Aggie fan is here, Michael. Mississippi State at number 6, Texas A&M. You put on the list.
It's an intriguing game because of what I mentioned earlier. We'll learn a little bit more about Mississippi State, how good they actually are, if it's going to help or hurt Arizona State's resume to have, quote, played them close, or a quality loss, or whatever the buzzword of the day is in December. But yeah, I just kind of like this as a visual matchup because the Maroons are so similar. Just the uniforms are so similar altogether. I'm just interested to see what it's going to look like in Kyle Field with different versions of maroon and white clashing.
You know what I think would be funny almost is if they wore the inverse uniforms of each other. So like Texas A&M wore their maroon helmet and maroon jersey with like their white pants, and then Mississippi State wore their like a white helmet, white shirt, maroon pant. I don't know why that would crack me up.
This is exactly what I would hope for too, and because the other matchup I want to focus on someday, please let this happen, is USC and Iowa State need to play each other. But I know what Iowa State will do. They will do some jackass thing where they come out wearing all their traditional, quote unquote, all blacks, or they're all whites with like the black logo or something, and they'll look like the team that was on any given Sunday as opposed to the Iowa State Cyclones.
There was a picture that came out from the Cyclones all white uniform, and at first impression of it, I was like, that's a Texas Tech uniform. And I was like, oh wait, that's Iowa State. I hate that they're so similar. Can I ask a question? This is going to sound insensitive, and I really don't mean it this way. Is there some kind of emotional bump here for the Aggies with the passing of their beloved Reveille? Is there some kind of extra juice there?
That's breaking news to me. That's breaking news. I did not know that had happened. So
it was in the past day or two, but yeah,
I don't think so. I think they'll, they've got their own motivations. They'll search from within.
Yeah. So, one more thing before we move on to the real football. Texas Tech announces, or I say Texas Tech, game time, homecoming game time versus Kansas on October 11th has been announced as a 6:30 p.m. kick over on Big Fox. So another night game. I hate to say it, Michael. Back it up, because the Oregon State game was originally a 2:30 kick, but with the weather delay, it ended up being a night game. With what you've been doing, you've been getting a lot of really great kickoff times and premier broadcast time slots. I don't know why my brain just stopped right there. You got the big noon kickoff. So obviously, like, was not a nighttime kick, but it was their Fox's premier kick time. I think a lot of people still prefer the evening, especially at home. You can tailgate, you get people to come into town, that extra time. You've had night games. You've done really well in front of night crowds. I think it's kind of also funny. I just remember this. Texas Tech is wearing basically a home combination of uniform this weekend on the road in Houston. When you think about it, it's kind of fitting, but you get a 6:30 p.m. kick for homecoming versus Kansas next weekend. All right. Soccer, Michael. Bring us up to date. What has happened since we last spoke?
So Texas Tech has not lost a game since we last spoke. They've only lost one all year still, but they did tie. We were kind of worried about that coming in. Houston came to town last Thursday.
Did you say tie?
At the time, they were 6-0 and 2. Yes.
That word is triggering to me right now,
So
Michael.
they were 6-0 and 2 coming in. Go Cowboys. So they had it was a hard-fought tie last Thursday. Tech's only score came from a penalty kick, and that was from Blackburn. There was a foul within the box, and she was able to just kind of fool the goaltender, who immediately went left, and then she kicked one of the slowest, most painful goals that I can imagine a goaltender has to watch, to her left. Just tapped it in, basically. So it's just a tough game. I didn't get to watch did not get to watch all of this. I got to watch the end of it, or at least the penalty kick. I just happened to have it on there. But Tech only had 10 shots on the night to Houston's 8. And Tech usually averages, 20 shots a game. So this was, a pretty good defensive effort by Houston to be able to slow down this offense. So, Tech has goes into Sunday's game at Iowa State with a 1-0-1 record in Big 12 play. Iowa State at the time was 4-2-2, 1-1 in Big 12 play. And Texas Tech jumped out early, and I'm talking really early. Kylie Barr found Sam Courtright on the opening drive. I don't know what else to call it. I'm a football guy talking about soccer, so bear with me. But yes, immediately after the game started, Texas Tech was up 1-0 with 20 seconds off of the clock. And, another game, another assist for Blackburn. This made her 9th on the year. So later on in the game, she set up, it was in the first half still. She set up a gorgeous kick from the goal line to the top of the box, where Peyton Parsons just absolutely nailed a header directly into the goal. And Texas Tech went up 2-0, never really looked back. They were much more aggressive on offense. Iowa State's defense was not really holding them back as much as Houston's was. Tech had 22 shots on the day. Iowa State's had 9. There was basically an arm tackle in the second half that went uncalled that would have been at the top of the box and would have been a penalty kick. And Coach Stone and at least one of his assistants got a yellow card arguing it. And I think it was very well deserved, because it was clear that the defender just wrapped their arm around the Tech player, and I can't remember who it was. But anyway, luckily it was a 2-0 game at that point, and it wasn't as crucial as it could have been, but that was pretty rough. So, another good set of games. We've got, Blackburn now has 9 assists on the year. She has 2 goals thanks to that penalty kick versus Houston that kept Tech from getting into the loss column there. But get ready, Lubbock, because the Red Raiders are coming to town. There's 3 consecutive home games on the schedule, starting this Thursday versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma is struggling in Big 12 play. They're 0-2-1. That game will be at 7 p.m. Sunday, Kansas is coming to town. They just got knocked out of the coaches poll with a 1-2 start in Big 12, but they're 7-2-2 overall. and they'll be here Sunday at 1 p.m. And not to look ahead too far, Spencer, but man, TCU is just absolutely rolling. They're 9-1 on the year. They're 3-0 in Big 12 play. They will be here for Friday night, October 10th, 7 p.m. I'm going to try to get the family out there because it's tough to get your little to a 7 p.m. Thursday game knowing that they have to get up and go to school the next day. But yeah, some Friday night lights to watch Texas Tech take on, what could potentially, knock on wood, be a 1-2 matchup in the Big 12 next Friday. So be looking for that if you're around on the 10th. And let's see this. And that is homecoming weekend. So if you're coming in for the Kansas game, just get in a day early. Go to the Walker. See Texas Tech play TCU. See Texas Tech play any of these teams anytime. But that one I think is going to be really big. I forgot to go through the rankings. Let me do that really quickly. So the rankings were updated this week. Texas Tech is back in the rankings for the first time since since they lost. And I think they lost after week 2. So they haven't been in the rankings since August. They've received votes here and there, but they rolled in at number 18. TCU, of course, is number 7 in the country. They're tied with Arkansas, who's my Notre Dame of this list. Arkansas is like 6-2-2 and is tied for 7th with TCU, who's 9-1. I don't know. Don't ask me. Baylor is rolling in. I don't think they were ranked either until this week, and they are 7-1-2, and they are number 20 in the country right now. So Colorado, West Virginia, BYU, all receiving votes. BYU's tough. They were really tough last year. It was between Tech and TCU and BYU last year in the Big 12 race. So a lot of games at the Walker. And as always, please check out Seeing Scarlet for a lot more in-depth analysis from people who watch the game and understand it way better than yours truly.
Speaking of, they were in the chat earlier this evening. So if you're still here, get your guns up. They do a fantastic job covering every Redditor sport. But let's get to your questions and wrap up with what do we learn. Michael, you put this in the notes. Are you aware of this hashtag fashion trend in baseball? And I wanted to react without looking at it. So I haven't even looked at it yet. Drip, you can drop. The surprisingly affordable accessory sweeping baseball. So let's check out what it is. It is what is it, Michael?
It's like a beaded necklace thing, and it's interesting. So we all went to a Savannah Bananas game in Denver, and so preparing for that, we watched several of the games, and my wife noticed that a lot of the players and a lot of the kids, especially the boys that went to those games, were wearing necklaces like this. And I never noticed necklaces. There's a lot of things I don't notice, but that's definitely up there. And so she went on this deep dive as to what they were and how they got popular. And basically, like a minor league player started kind of making them. And then someone said, "Hey, you should sell those." And he's like, "Okay, I will." And so he started doing it. And then they've just been everywhere. And so they're kind of like beads, but I don't know. I just thought, well, you're a baseball guy, so maybe you've seen this somewhere. Maybe you've seen the youths wearing this in any of the stuff that you and your oldest have participated in.
I have not seen this get down to that level just yet. Would not surprise me with just the accessorizing that baseball players do. And it's going to swing back from, ridiculous jewelry to something a little bit more over the top, but in a different manner. I know for a few years ago, it was they were braided, like leather braided necklaces. They were like baseball high. They had like the stitches. Those were all the rage, and then it went to actual gold jewelry, and I think it's swinging back now to this type of stuff. I don't love it. Just to be old man, get off my lawn. I was watching the Monday night game, and I can't remember who it was, but they just on the broadcast they had a close up of a receiver, and like he had like 3 necklaces sticking out of his shoulder pads around his neck. I was like, man, that's too much, and it's just ridiculous. I don't like disagree or like hate this, but like I hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, well, it's something I can. I'm trying to think of the word. It's something I can definitely see happening, but not like I'm like, oh, that's fantastic or that's great or I hate it. I have very little strong opinion on it. How about that?
That works.
Right.
That works for me.
Let's wrap this up with what do we learn, Michael? You are doing your best to keep us focused on what really matters here, and it is bringing us back to our roots. And if y'all are aware, of course you are, you know we are a food blog, a food podcast first and foremost. That likes to dabble in sports. There is a certain resurgence of menu items on the Taco Bell menu, Michael, that's coming back. I want you to take us through what they are, why you love them so much, and what it means for all of us.
The decades Y2K menu at Taco Bell is transformative. And I've already participated in this at least twice. So for those of you who don't know, Texas Tech, oh my gosh, Taco Bell has re-released some of their favorites from the Y2K era, which is, I think it probably goes back a little bit before Y2K, but also after. So anyway, they're calling it this. And the items included are the Cool Ranch Dorito Locos Taco, the Caramel Apple Empanada, which I don't think I ever even had, the 7-layer burrito. Okay, all right, getting warmer. The double decker taco.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's an all timer. That might be a top 5 fast food item. It's very close. Maybe it's at least top 10. But for me, Spencer, the thing that I cherish and that I've missed the absolute most since they took it off the menu is the humble chili cheese burrito. So simple, so good, so fantastic. I've had 2 of them in the last 5 days.
All right. So I've never actually had the chili cheese burrito. The Cool Ranch Doritos Locos Taco doesn't even feel like it was that long ago that was on the menu. I remember when they came out with the nacho cheese one that was otherworldly, and they started replacing the taco shells into other taco based entrees. You could get it in a double decker. You could get it in their crunchy gordita crunches or whatever they call them. So that one, it's hard to say, like, remember that was that far back. Double decker was an all-time favorite for me. I love those things. My family has been missing out on a certain Lubbock fast food Mexican chain, and this is not down here. So we've kind of found a substitute that falls far short and going for fast food tacos, and we go to Taco Bell. So we've been eating a lot more of Taco Bell than we have in a long, long time since we probably first got married, or we were first dating, Samantha and I. But saying all that, My go-tos on that item, on that menu, are the double-decker tacos. I like the soft tacos, and then the Crunchwrap Supremes and the Mexican pizzas. Um, the Mexican pizza also feels like it belongs on this, but it was like a cult favorite they like had to bring back, and they brought it back separate from all of this. But yeah, I like that they're bringing back some of their more favorite items and then branding it as being retro because they know exactly like who their audience is. It's us. It's us. And going back to when we were eating these kind of meals when we were quite a bit younger, but maybe I need to try the chili cheese burrito. But of this list, though, the double deckers is an all time favorite. In the chat, Michael, we get this from Aaron. Get the Taco Bell app. Customization is key. Let me tell you, the level of customization you get through the app. Well, you can customize anything. Let's be honest, without having to have an app. It is just so much easier, especially for somebody with a little bit of social anxiety. Like I don't want to be up there at the register talking to somebody for 18 minutes and tell them exactly how my taco. You can literally punch in any kind of customization or updates or change to any item. You can change out the proteins, change the amount, add cheeses or sauces or veggies or whatever. Grill things that aren't normally grilled. Um, it's fantastic. I've been playing with adding beans to the Crunchwrap Supreme. I've added some of the nacho cheese sauce to the Mexican pizzas. Inadvertently, I had a soft taco grilled, and that was life changing. Um, yeah, it's a lot of Taco Bell talk for somebody that turned his nose up at Taco Bell for a very long time, and is like, no, this is what we can find down here. It's what we've been eating a lot of. So I'm here for it. In a vacuum, I'm
Yeah,
here for
the
it.
app is a very the app is really pretty crucial to the Taco Bell experience for me these days because I like you. I mean, I don't like to pull up in the drive-through because they're changing their menu and doing stuff so frequently and so randomly that I don't want to just feel like I missed out. If I go up to the drive-through menu and let me look for a minute, I hate doing that. I hate making people wait. Then I'm just going to order my normal, Crunchwrap Supreme and a spicy potato taco or whatever. But then I'm going to miss out on the fact that they have the chili cheese burrito, which is one of my favorite fast food things. And they have the double decker taco now, or they've got this, or they've got, you feel like you're going to miss out. So yeah, the app is fantastic. The other thing I really like about the app, they make it easy to enter receipts. So for those times where you're just like, I know what I want. I don't feel like messing with my phone, whatever. I'm just going to roll through the drive through or take the family through. Yeah. Here's what we want. And then you can take that receipt and enter in the code on the receipt and you still get your points. It's really easy. It's I don't think Whataburger does that. McDonald's does it, but it's weird. And, but Taco Bell's the only one that makes it super simple where you just enter it. So you can even pay cash or whatever, and then just hang on to your receipt long enough to enter in that code, and then you'll get your points, and you'll eventually get like a free. You can choose a free reward. You get a free like gordita. No, you get a free chalupa or bean burrito, or there's like 5 or 6 things to pick from. So yeah, the app's fantastic. Big fan.
Big fan. Oh, I had something and I just lost it. You were talking about ordering, customizing something on the app, not doing it on the. It's gone. Wow. Okay. Last food thing, Michael. I don't know how closely you've been paying attention to the Whataburger menu, but the Buffalo Ranch chicken strip sandwich is back, and I am here for it. All right.
I have to let my wife know, because that is, I think, one of her absolute favorites. That and the Monterey Melt.
That one's pretty good too. All right. I'll give Michael a couple seconds to process, to catch up internet wise. I say Michael, I get his fault. It's probably my internet. It's the culprit here. But we are going to be wrapping up soon. We will be back Saturday night to chop up the Texas Tech Houston game. It will be a late one since this will be a night kick. So hang with us. We will be on the stream giving you our thoughts. But Michael and I both have Texas Tech winning comfortably in Houston. We'll see you Saturday night. For Michael and Spencer, catch you guys later.
Thank you for listening to the 23 Personnel Podcast. Help us out by subscribing, rating the show, and leaving a review. Follow us on Twitter at 23 Personnel, Spencer at PuntSuck, and Michael at Michael_LBK. Be sure to catch the next episode. And until then, guns up and let the tortillas fly.